Here are 8 historically botched executions that went shockingly wrong, each with its own surprising twist. Number 1. Thomas Cromwell. Thomas Cromwell, once King Henry VIII's right-hand man, had a spectacular fall from grace. In 1540, he was arrested for treason and heresy. No trial, no fuss, just a fast track to the chopping block. Execution day was anything but dignified. Cromwell got an inexperienced executioner. The first blow missed the mark, leaving Cromwell in agonizing pain. It took several messy swings, but eventually they got the job done. Witnesses were treated to a gruesome spectacle, a far cry from the quick, clean executions usually reserved for nobility. Number 2. Anne Green. In 1650, Anne Green, a servant in England, got the short end of the stick with a suspicious conviction for infanticide and was promptly hanged. Her friends helped give her a swinging send-off, and a helpful soldier even threw in a few musket butt whacks for good measure. Declared dead, her body was shipped off to Oxford University for dissection. But just as the medics were prepping for their anatomy lesson, Anne started breathing. Cue the chaos. The medics, probably more used to cadavers than resurrections, did the logical thing. They warmed her up in bed with another woman, gave her some cordials, and watched as she defied death. Anne woke up with no memory of her hanging, making everyone think it was divine intervention, leading to a public outcry over her execution. Moved by her ordeal, the authorities granted Green a full pardon. Number 3. Tom Blackjack Ketchum. Tom Blackjack Ketchum, a notorious outlaw of the Old West, met his maker in 1901. Convicted of attempted train robbery, Ketchum was sentenced to hang in Clayton, New Mexico. The twist? The town had zero experience in the fine art of hangings. The hangman miscalculated the length of the rope and did not account for the weight Ketchum gained in prison. These oversights led to an excessive drop that caused Ketchum to be decapitated when the trapdoor opened. Ketchum's last words were, "Goodbye, please dig my grave very deep. All right, hurry up." Number 4. Robert François Damiens. Robert François Damiens tried to assassinate King Louis XV in 1757 with a penknife, a plot that went about as well as you'd expect. For his efforts, Damiens received a VIP ticket to one of the most brutal executions in French history. On execution day in Paris's Place de Grève, Damiens endured a series of terrible tortures. Red-hot pincers, molten lead, boiling oil, and resin poured into his wounds, the works. Then came the main event, drawing and quartering. The plan was for horses to rip him apart at the seams, but apparently the horses missed the memo. After some awkward attempts, the executioners had to cut his tendons to get things moving. Even then, it took hours of gruesome effort to finish the job. Number 5. Margaret Pole. Margaret Pole, Countess of Salisbury and one of the last Plantagenets, had a rough go of it in 1541. At 67, she was imprisoned in the Tower of London due to her family's royal ties and her son's opposition to the ever-so-kind Henry VIII. She was executed under rather dubious treason charges. Unlike most nobles, Margaret did not go quietly. She refused to place her head on the block, declaring, "So should traitors do, and I am none." She definitely made the executioner work to fill his quota that day, darting around the scaffold while the executioner hacked away at her. By the end of it, even the torture-crazy audience was flinching in sympathy. It all combined to make for one of the most botched beheadings of Henry VIII's reign. Number 6. Thomas Scott. Thomas Scott, an Irish Protestant, ended up on the wrong side of history during the 1885 Red River Rebellion. Accused of insubordination and threats against Louis Riel, Scott's trial was more of a kangaroo court than a legal proceeding. The verdict? Guilty. The sentence? Death by firing squad. However, you can't really hope for a proper execution when the firing squad has the aiming ability of a stormtrooper. The first volleys missed every lethal area, leaving poor Thomas victim to a long, drawn-out, painful death. Barely alive, Scott was placed in a makeshift coffin. He was later reported to cry out, "For God's sake, take me out of here or kill me!" Scott was left there to die from his injuries. Number 7. William Francis Kemler. William Francis Kemler, the unlucky pioneer of the electric chair, met his shocking fate on August 6, 1890. Convicted of murder, Kemler became the first person to be executed by electrocution, and boy, did it not go smoothly. The execution team, eager to show off their newfangled technology, strapped Kemler in and threw the switch. However, the first jolt wasn't enough to finish the job, leaving him writhing and very much alive. As smoke started to rise, the panicked officials scrambled to crank up the juice for a second attempt. In the end, it took 2 attempts and a whole lot of smoke to finally send Kemler off. Number 8. Joseph Samuel. On September 26, 1803, Samuel and another unlucky fellow were carted off to Parramatta for what was supposed to be their execution. Their nooses, strong enough to hold 1,000 pounds, were tied around their necks. The typical method back then caused slow, painful deaths by strangulation. The other man died this way, but Samuel's rope snapped and he fell, spraining his ankle. The executioner, undeterred, tried and failed to hang Samuel again and again. As the crowd watched the repeated failures, they began to protest, calling for Samuel's release. The governor arrived, inspected the ropes and the scene, and decided it must be a sign from above. Samuel wasn't meant to die that day. Samuel's sentence was promptly changed to life imprisonment, and thus he walked away, albeit with a limp, from his execution alive. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more. See you soon. Probably.